if you are not very intentional about this, one of the things that are going to hit us hard as men in the diaspora is loneliness when we're old. Because we don't have the classmates again, we don't have the cousins, we don't have the uncles, we don't have all those things we take for granted back home that will always be there. The age mates that we have. We don't have those things here.
A safe space to talk about misconceptions, perceptions, assumptions, and frustrations. Join us for conversations and stories that explore how embracing our differences leads to a balanced, strong, and harmonious.
Hello and welcome to the Dimdin podcast, your space to talk about misconceptions, perceptions, assumptions, and frustrations that we diasporans here in the diaspora do experience. I am your host, Becca, aka the Serenadian. Now, I have had a lot of accusations from men that the Dimdin podcast does not showcase men as much as it does women. Is that true? Or do I just struggle to have guests that are men that are willing to come on the podcast? Well, either way, I have a man today who's willing to save me from these accusations and talk about men-related issues and resources that we have in place for that. So I'm genuinely, truly excited for that. Without further ado, join me and welcome Mr. Chidi, who I'm going to pass it over to introduce himself because I know he will do it justice. Over to you, Mr. Chidis. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Patricia. It's been a while, and I'm glad that we are doing this today. Your podcast is one of my favorites.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It has been a while. I genuinely am excited that we are finally getting this done today. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Like, what do you want viewers to know about you, what you do, family?
Originally, I came from Nigeria, and I've been here for almost a decade now. I'm a dad of 3 boys, and I wear a couple of hats in the community. I'm well and deeply involved in our community because I believe that in a land where we are in the minority, the worst thing that we can do to ourselves is to go back, to withdraw. So we need to come forward, come together, bound together as a people so that we can support each other on this journey because it is a very challenging journey.
I totally agree. I think it's challenging, especially even so for men. Because women tend to have that community where we're chatty, so we talk about any and everything. Whereas men tend to be a bit more conservative, if you may.
And you're spot on. What we've noticed is that men don't have the same level of social support that women do have. And it comes from so many perspectives, especially from our culture. A man is supposed to be a king in his castle. And as a king, you don't go to another person to begin to discuss about the things that are happening in your empire for you to get the sort of suggestions and all of that. The challenge with that is obviously is a misconception, is a myth, but we've been living with that. It has denied us the ability to interact and connect with each other, which is very imperative, which is very important if we need to move forward. It also builds into broader stereotypes of men being strong. Men don't cry. Men don't need help. Men are self-sufficient. Men are empowered. And in the Western world where we are, where we have empowerment, particularly for the vulnerable groups like children and women, one can even argue in a sense that we have overcompensated because there's so much resources for kids, for children. There's so much resources for women, but there are very few for men. And yet we are struggling, yet we are suffering.
You really answered the first question that I have for you without me even asking it. And it's interesting that you say that because that gets me wondering, if you are the same man that we rely on to lead us to be at the forefront, yet you don't have enough resources for yourselves, how does that work?
And that's the paradox of being a man, of manhood, is that you are expected to be the strength, the pillar, the person, the go-to person at every given moment. You are the one person that is like a rock in the house. But fundamentally, you are human. So the same blood and water that cruises through us, through everybody, you are human. You are still made up of the emotional part, the spiritual part, and the physical part. And sometimes, even from the way we bring up boys, we tend to put so much weight on them, so much expectations that are not realizable. And so we grow up struggling with all of this. And ultimately, we find it very challenging to raise our hands and say, I need help. And because we've not socialized men with needing help, boys with needing help, many of us carry burdens that are unimaginable. So many of us come out in the community, we look like everything is perfect for us. But in the secrecy of our hearts, I give this example of people going into the washroom, and sometimes when they're overwhelmed and faced with challenges, they go into the washroom and cry. And then they come out and clean their eyes and then keep moving forward. Nobody knows all those silent struggle except people like us who are also in the field. So it's only a man that understands the struggle it takes to be a man. So that is why it's important to speak up, because so many of us think that is the normal way it should be. We've seen our father struggle like that. We've seen our cousins, our uncles, and all of that struggle like that. We think that is our own way, but we're saying, can we have that conversation where we can talk about men's wellness, particularly mental wellness, particularly the need for a human connection among men?
Oh, yes. Yes. You've touched all the right buttons. And I'm sure wherever the men are right now, they are reminding themselves why they've been wanting men to speak on the Dimdin podcast. It's like, because you genuinely are the ones who truly understand the challenges that you go through and the social barriers that have been put in place that sort of like cements those challenges even further. And so you saw a need, you saw the lack of resources, and you chose not to just sit down and complain about it, but do something about it. As challenging as it would have been to start up something, given the way things are sometimes, you made that brave decision to do so. Can you tell us a little bit about that organization that you started and what it's about?
Okay, I'll start with what it's about. Sometime, I think it was 2020, I went for this funeral in our community, a burial. And this was a 51-year-old man, and he's just passed from prostate cancer. And I was just sitting down, standing at the graveside, and I saw the coffin. Everybody had left. For some reason, I was drawn there. I think I was one of the last people to leave there. And I saw the finality of the human experience, just there, done. And it struck me because back home, the way people are buried is that people are put in the ground and then the sand covers it. So it gives you a sense of like closure. But here, you could still see the grave open even after the person had been lowered, because the government will come, the cemetery will come and do their work to cover it. And after that, I started thinking about the impact of some of these illnesses in our community and why nobody is talking about them. Prostate cancer, for example, affects 1 in 4 men. Then the challenging part of this, or the paradox of this, is that it is one of those illnesses where if you engage with the medical system early enough, you'll be able to find help, you're able to find support. But we're not engaging with the medical system as men. We come from with different cultural baggages. We come from some places that look at saying we are ill as a weakness. We come from where something I call a silent culture, where we don't review what we're dealing with, because so many people will misinterpret it. So people are not engaging with the medical system, even in a land where the healthcare system is free. We are dying in the midst of plenty. So I felt drawn to the fact that we need to do something about this. And I'll tell you, it has been frustrating on one hand. It has also been enriching on the other hand. It's been frustrating because when you speak to men about wellness, it's not what the average man wants to hear.
No.
And I understand it. What you want to hear is, hey, you need to come get this job or get into this business and make money because we've been defined by our ability to provide. Okay. But it's fulfilling in the sense that we are beginning to change the narration one man at a time. So when you say it enough, when you remind people enough about their mortality, that, hey, it's important that you make out time to invest in self-care. Sometimes, and we are seeing it changing the story. One of the examples I use when I talk about this is, I tell some men, because I developed this community of men that work together. So we work every Saturday. And what has happened is sometimes when we see some men and you invite them to this work, they will tell you, oh, we have little kids to take care of. We have work to take care of. We have the family. My family is still young. And I use the iconic conversations we have when we enter the aircraft, where people will tell you, hostesses will tell you, in the event of a sudden loss of oxygen pressure, cabin pressure, oxygen masks will drop from up, down. Put your own first. So what that typically tells us is that we should put our own mask first, invest in our self-care. And the reason is, if you are not well, you're of no use to anyone.
I can definitely appreciate the frustration. And kudos to you for not only seeing the frustrating aspect of things, which I think is something that tends to break dreams or really kill them at an early stage, when you don't see as much support or people utilizing the resources, even though you clearly see the need for it. So kudos to you for choosing to see the small wins and the people that you are supporting or that you created this resource for, utilizing it. And I really want to also appreciate you for going to a funeral, not just not just being present for that person who passed, but leaving that place with an intention to say, I saw something here that maybe could have been prevented if we talk more about these things that we don't talk about, right? And you coming on and saying, we're not going to be silent about this anymore. We're going to talk about it. So thank you. Thank you very much. Why would we say this conversation is relevant here, now, and for diasporans?
So one of the things that have been understated is the impact of the immigration process on our mental, physical, and spiritual health. It's been understated. And part of that is, where we come from. We don't like to show our struggles. We show more of our successes, number one. Number two is, because of where we come from, government have not really invested so much money in terms of understanding what is going on among the immigrant community, especially the people from the Black community, because the immigrant experience differs from where you come from. So for example, somebody from UK coming in here, a British citizen coming into Canada to settle, will have a less stressful journey than somebody from Sierra Leone or Ghana, where we come from. Your education might be discounted, so you are looked into this. You need Canadian experience to get Canadian job. I need Canadian job to get Canadian experience. So how do you break all of that? And for many of us who left very high positions, from very high positions where we come from, to come here and somebody says you need to have a foot in the door, sometimes it means going back for roles that you did 17, 15, 10 years ago, just because you have to pay your bills. Mm-hmm. Or not even getting accepted in the profession where you had thrived, like you're a medical doctor and all of that. It takes a lot, because our identity as men are structured around our profession. So we have that identity that we are this, we are providers, this is who we are. So if you yank us off from that identity that we've created, if you make it challenging for us to get back to that identity that we've known ourselves, it it impacts broadly on so many things. So you are seeing the social connection that is broken. You're seeing the impact in the family. You are seeing the challenge. One of them, which is that the kids do not see any more value in education. So many of the kids that we bring in here who have seen their fathers as professors back home or doctors or whatever back home comes in here and sees their father now being a taxi man, and they know that you don't. And I'm not saying this to make a mockery of people who are driving taxi. I'm saying this just to put in context. Right. Right. And they know that you don't need to go to school to be an Uber driver. So when you ask them to concentrate and go to school, they're going out there, they're seeing their peers who are not bothered. And deeply, they're saying, okay, you that went to school, what are you doing? Right. So those are some of the challenges that are on our shoulders as men who come in from the diaspora. The other part of it, of course, is the relationships, the marriages that we bring in here. Now, many people talk about domestic violence in the context of the immigrant community, men in the immigrant community. They talk about it. You hear words like toxic masculinity. You hear words like men not supporting when they come to the West. So a man who has been providing for his family, who is the lord and man of his home, who has economic empowerment, support, and all of that for his family, all of a sudden comes in here and say the wife gets a job first before him or gets more empowered before him. It will take a little bit for him to have that mental reorganization, if you like, to accept the situation the way it is. Now, in that struggle, the smallest things that happen in the house, he flares up. And then, boom, you say you have domestic violence. So because the community, the government have not really understood this background. When we talk about mental health, when we talk about domestic violence in the larger immigrant community, the government tends to look at it, oh, the men are always guilty. Oh, the men are violent. Oh, the men, that's what black men do. Black men beat up their wives, blah, blah. But that's not true. And because we don't have the right diagnosis, because we do not understand where the rain started beating us in a sense, we will not know how to solve this thing. And that is also the reason why it's important to talk to men to say, listen, you are coming into a place where you are facing challenges that your fathers did not face, your grandfathers did not face.
Wow.
Now you need to have resources that can help you navigate those situations.
Wow.
Parenting, for example, being a father from an intercultural perspective, so you are bringing up kids from an intercultural perspective. You are black, you are African, you are bringing up kids in the West. How do you manage it? Right? Back home, you didn't need to bother because the same template that was used to bring you up is the same template you are using. Now you can't use the same template. It does not apply. And so that's why we are having those pull and push and all of that within the community, within the family.
Instead of the current narrative of people or society pointing fingers at men and accusing them of various things, just seeing the behavior or the outcome and not necessarily looking at the contributing factors that are influencing some of these behaviors or these outcomes, but they're choosing to beat you up really, even though you are already experiencing enough mental turmoil that you maybe don't know how to talk about, or you don't feel safe to talk about. You don't feel like the platform has been created for those conversations to be had safely. And what you're saying then is this conversation is important because it does not only affect the self, that sense of self, and that mental unwellness, which sometimes I feel like when we come from some parts of Africa, we think mental health has to do with, or mental unwellness has to do with running mad on the street. We don't know that these stressors, these toxic stressors, can influence our mental health as well in a negative way. So you're saying it not only affects the self, but it affects the way the future generation looks at you as the leader of a household when you're trying to pass on some of those values that were passed on to you about education and helping them prepare for a better future. But they're looking at you and saying, you had all the degrees and look at you driving a taxi. So what's the benefit in getting the degrees? Your talk does not reflect your walk right now, which is not any fault of yours. And you're also saying that this comes back down to the home, because we've covered a domestic violence episode on this podcast, but we didn't talk about that. So I'm glad that you're bringing it up and saying, instead of looking at the outcome or the behaviors, can we talk about the contributing factors? Wow. I hope you all are listening. I'm sure the men are very excited to have this conversation. If you're just joining us, this is the Dimdin podcast. I am your host, Becca, the Serenadian, and we are talking about the contributing factors that lead to some of the outcomes and the labels that we place on men that affect their mental health, their social well-being, their spiritual health that we necessarily don't talk about. And our guest today is Mr. Chidi, who is just giving us so much knowledge. Okay. Now, I'm sure there are interested viewers out there who are thinking they would like to join the advocacy, they would like to hold hands with you, and they would like to tackle this issue because they agree with everything you've shared. How can they join you to do this?
We have a website, obviously. The Resilient Immigrant Foundation is the name of the foundation that we have, and Pack and Walk is the name of the program that we use, where we walk every weekend for men. So if you go to trifcanada.org, you'll be able to have more information. We have a WhatsApp group where the men who work together, we pass information along that line. Well, and coming up soon is a Father's Day celebration that we want to do in Edmonton. And the Father's Day celebration is us saying, let's bring out one day in a year and celebrate the men in our lives and talk about the roles that they play. And not just keep hampering on the mistakes that are made or the inadequacies or the shortcomings. For one evening, we celebrate men. And why is this important? Men don't like to make noise about their role. We don't like to speak about our role. We like to stay in the background and make sure that things are done properly. So you really see men coming out to say, hey, I did this, I did that. We don't talk so much about it, but it also does not mean that we are not human. Okay, can we have one day where the community can come together and say, you know what, men, you guys have done well, even if there is a room for improvement, because the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. So this year, we were starting something, the 14th of June 2025 at 5 p.m. in downtown Polish Hall, we're going to have Father's Day. And the idea is men come together. The first hour, we network, we talk among ourselves. Then we have dinner, and a man talks to us about his own struggles so that we can also know that we are not alone, where he had attempted, failed, and succeeded. So he's going to be very vulnerable to teach us how to be vulnerable ourselves, to say, hey, I am not perfect. And then one of the other things we also plan to do is to look at some of the silent heroes we have in our community who are men, who are worth celebrating, who are worth bringing up as models, whose stories are worth telling. So we're asking the community to please nominate these people for us. So you have them as your fathers, you have them as your uncles, you have them as whatever role they are, sons in your lives. Nominate them and tell us a little bit about them. Who knows? There might be somebody who is passing through the same journey that will find their story very compelling. So those are some of the things that we're doing. So to recap, we walk every weekend. It doesn't matter whether it is raining or whether there is sun, because walking is the best thing any human can do. Walking is the best exercise possible. Walking, according to Socrates, is the best medication after laughter. So when we walk every Saturday, we are not just husbands, we are not dads, we are just guys hanging out with each other. Okay? We're hanging out with each other, enjoying each other's company, telling jokes, cracking jokes, saying it the way it is, and then you can go to your brother and say, hey, I am having this problem. Have you gone through this before? And the person says, yes, this is what has happened, this is what has happened. Quietly, you get the support that you need. Quietly, you get the encouragement that you need. There have been so many cases where people come to us and say, hey, I'm going through this. And you say, you know what, among us here, this person is a resource person you can go to. So we direct them to that person and they get they need the support that they require. And we don't have to make noise about this because we understand that all of us are struggling. All of us have some things that we are dealing with at any given moment. And it's not just health. It's also the whole aspect of settling in Canada. I'll give you an example. A brother came during one of our walks and mentioned about the mortgage contract is just negotiated. And we asked him a couple of questions and he answered very candidly. And we realized that he had taken a debt that he cannot afford.
Wow.
So here he is thinking, oh, I've gotten a house and all of that. We told him, from what you just told us, you are going to carry a debt. You will be house poor. It's a house rich now. But where you have so much money going into the mortgage, more than what your resources will carry. And we said to him, a house, for example, is a liability. And a liability is defined as anything that takes money out of your pocket. So anything that takes money out of your pocket in every day is a liability. And the biggest thing that we've known from financial literacy is that the less liabilities you carry and more assets you carry, the more you are better off financially. And so the suggestion was that if you carry a 600,000 home where you'll be paying, there's no how you can turn that house into an asset. It's not bringing in money for you. You cannot rent the basement and all of that. It might be a little bit challenging for you. And he went home, he thought about it, and he came back and he said, this makes a lot of sense. And so we helped him in that sense to go back and renegotiate that contract to find something way, way smaller and way better for his situation and his economic journey at the time. So these are some of the things that we are doing silently in the community. And I struggle to give these examples because I don't want to reveal what people are going through, obviously their privacy, but we need to also show some examples of what happens when men come together. There is a case, for example, of somebody who works with us. He's been diabetic, right? He's been diabetic for a very long time. We pick up this walking, he comes regularly. During this summer, we do step challenge where we challenge men in our group to walk 10,000 steps every day. And he was faithful to do that. And then one morning I woke up and I saw a text message from the wife. He says, this is the first time that in almost 10 years of the husband being diabetic, he had not gone into a diabetic crisis because of the walking. Because again, the research shows that when the best thing anybody can do who is diagnosed as diabetic is to walk. So these are some almost the examples of the things that we hear when we come together and when we walk. And when I hear these things, I am so humbled because honestly, I didn't know that this small thing that I started will have this kind of impact. So I guess what I'm saying is we walk every Saturday. Please go to our website. Please reach out to us, and we want as many men as possible.
Wow, those testimonies just confirm the need for something that you're doing. Like being able to, because you're right, like be it mental health or physical health, some of those basic things that we fail to do or that we take for granted, like going for walks and making sure you have enough steps in a day. Those are some of the medicines that we can start with. And having someone to motivate you, having someone that you feel accountable to can make things like that a bit more possible than when you're left to your own mercy. Because I know I have a mini gym at home, and Lord help me, I don't remember when last I used it. Full confession. But you had mentioned that mental health aspect of things and the stress. And I genuinely do appreciate that the walks definitely help, and you both chatting with each other is also a beneficial factor. But have you considered adding like a professional aspect to your organization, having like a therapist that they can talk to? Because I know our people can be a bit concerned about confidentiality and privacy sometimes.
So we are just bringing up right now setting up a properly called and properly structured mental health support. And what we did is to go back to the community, find somebody who is like us, somebody in our community who is like us, and we have discussed with the person. And so we're going to be having like these one clinics once a month or something like that, and then we can give people access to him in a way that they can reach out to him quietly without anybody knowing, to support them. What we are trying to do, what we haven't taken off per se after doing all the background work, is a little bit of funding, because those guys, they don't come cheap, and it won't be fair to ask somebody to keep volunteering in the community, to keep giving back something that you have invested so much money in doing as a professional. So we are hoping, and we are hoping for a couple of grant applications to happen. But before that, part of what we have also done to bridge that gap before the funding comes in is, before every walk, we bring up one aspect of the challenges that we have and how it ties into mental health. And we have a conversation around it. Last Saturday, the conversation was men taking out time to rest when they need it. Ooh. So that permission to hear your body when it says, I want to rest.
Just without feeling guilty about resting or shame.
Without feeling that you're a weak person because you're resting. Without feeling that, oh, you are looking at the money that you're going to lose when you rest. You need to rest.
That's a big one.
So and people brought in different perspectives on that conversation, different perspective about it. These are some of the things that we started doing, and we have seen many recommendations coming from that initiative. So it's not just walking, it's also the support we give to each other, candidly, by discussing these things. Some days it might be parenting. There was one time we had a conversation around what are the struggles that we have as fathers parenting in Canada. And it was illuminating. It was an eye-opening conversation. So we are bringing these things up. Hopefully before the end of this year, the mental health program will have been running, because we're not talking with African Center, and we are finding ways to collaborate with African Center in that aspect to help us.
Beautiful. I was going to ask about that. So thank you for touching on it before I do. For people that are not within Edmonton, that are watching this and are super excited for this already and want to be part of it but cannot be present in person, do we have any accommodations for them?
Yes, we are trying to set up different groups in different parts of Alberta, but that is still a long shot. What you can do is to reach out to us, and then we can find ways to bring you into the WhatsApp group and then share some of the resources and some of the stories that we have. But more importantly, what you can do right from this moment is to go for a walk. Build walking into your plan for the day. Okay, make sure that you are active, because one of the 6 dimensions of self-care is physical self-care, which is movement, which is you being active, which is you going out and doing things. And I love the way you mentioned the mini gym you have in the house. Almost all of us have our treadmills, right? almost all of us have our treadmills. I can still remember the first time I was on the treadmill for an hour. So that will tell you how rare it is. But I can tell you that I have walked with my brothers, and we've done 2 hours every Saturday. That sometimes you can even do up to 3 hours, and we're not tired because you have for other people. You are drawing strength from each other. The whole idea of fatherhood and of manhood is that we need to realize you can't do this alone. And then you come together as a group. While you're on this, a grandfather came on vacation here to Canada, and the son-in-law told him about this, and he came. He was so faithful, and he came. And this, like, is an 80-year-old retired professor from Nigeria. He was just coming in for our walks every day. Guess what? He's gone back home, and he has started it in the university where he walks. So every Saturday sometimes he sends me pictures of him and people in his age group and his community. They are walking. So you never know how these things you do, how they can spread. And when you hear, so what I would say is start where you are, start with yourself first, inculcate the work in your life. Because the world we live in, the works we do, we are sedentary for most part. So if you're not intentional about movement, you may have a challenge. If you go to YouTube, there is a video that I will recommend that people watch. It's called The Gift of Walking. Everything there is true. The statistics have been proven. The practice in our group has proven many of the things there are true, both for men and for women.
I love that. I love that for you and for the men in general. If you're just joining us, this is the Dimdin podcast. I am your host, Becca, aka the Serenadian. And we are, of course, having a delicious conversation like we always do with our guest today, Mr. Chidi, who is talking on men health resources that are available, some of the barriers they experience and contributing factors. Okay, so now I want us to send messages out to our people. I know those of you who have chosen to do this work can do this work. But of course, when you leave this community of safe space, of safe people, you're going back to your community, like your extended community, and the support that they're able to offer or willing to offer will go a long way to sustain some of the work that you do within these communities. So let's start with the men. I've heard to those men who say fitness is for the lazy man. Those of us who are busy working always have a one pack because that's evidence that we are hardworking. What can we say to them? I've heard that so many times. Okay.
We are human beings. We are human beings. We are not human beings. We need to realize that we need to be, okay, not to do. That's number one. Number two is you are more important for your family, for your community, for the world when you are well. One of the biggest challenges that we have seen when men are sick in the home is that they draw most of the resources to themselves. So attention, time, money, and all of that. So it's almost like every other person is just working with less capacity because you are taking more. So if what you can do for yourself, even if you don't want to think about yourself, for your family, the best thing you can do for your family is the gift of your awareness. It's the gift of you being alive. The minute this breath does not come in, it's gone. And we have these examples. So sometimes we men think that we're immortal until the very last minute. You are not going to beat the odd. You are not going to be the one that beat the odd. What you can do is to try to elongate as much as possible all the time that you have here on earth in terms of how you're able to pass your days so that you are free, you're able to move, and you are healthy. I read something recently where somebody says at the age of 80, one of the blessings you can count for yourself is that you're able to move at the age of 80. If you're able to move freely on your own at 80, it's a big blessing. But guess what? You can't get to 80 and be moving about and have that gift if you don't start when you are 50, when you are 40, when you are 60. Because what we have seen in healthcare, in health, is the thing that you do today will impact tomorrow. So if you want to be healthy in your 30s, you start in your 20s. If you want to be healthy in your 60s, you have to start in your 40s and all of that. So, and being healthy includes movement, which is important, includes watching what you eat, includes managing your stress level, your sleep, because that's the only time the body has the opportunity to repair itself. Okay, it's only when we sleep. So prioritize your self-care. Prioritize your self-care. You can't go wrong by making your self-care a priority. It may sound selfish. But it is not. It's actually survival. And you can't support other people if you are not surviving. You cannot support other people when you are incapacitated. So please, the money is important, no doubt about it. But you have to be healthy to earn the money. You even have to be healthy to spend the money. If anything happens to you, the family will struggle.
Without you.
But they will carry on. So spare them that struggle for a long time. Help them to make it easier for them to go through their own journey without necessarily becoming adults while they're still teenagers, by coming out every Saturday and joining us to work. Just that. The medical profession says you need 150 minutes of exercises every week to be healthy. So these are some of the things I need to tell my brothers. It's not just about money. We need to be healthy.
So you are not just created to do, but to be. And your presence is as important in that provider role as the income you bring into your family. And when you're able to care for yourself, you are not just doing what you can to be around longer to care for your family, but you're really also modeling to the rest of your family what it's like to be a healthy human being. Thank you. Now, to the wives and the women in the community who may be out of jealousy or insecurity or whatever it is, are trying to deter their men from showing up for these walks on Saturdays. What do we say to them?
They are my brothers, and the space we are creating is safe. Sometimes we've had ladies who come with their husband, and we don't discriminate. If you want to drop in with your husband to check it out and make sure that
your feasibility study.
It's open. But the point is that if you can help us push him out of the bed in the morning, if you can help us tell him to find a way to motivate him to come. Nobody had ever gone for a walk that regretted it. Not one person. In the morning, even for me, as somebody said, sometimes I struggle. Sometimes I want to say, let me sleep in. It's too much, right? But if after I have gone out there and done this for 2 hours every Saturday, I come back happy that I have done this. I'm more relaxed. I am more calm. I'm ready to pick up the rules again. So help us bring out our brothers. What you are doing is you are supporting him in a way that sometimes he might not know right away until after some times. You can also have the same testimony that we've had from other wives who tell us this is amazing for our husbands. And more significant is, and it's something that you mentioned here, which is modeling for the whole family that wellness is important. So the kids we see also see us watch what we eat, watch what we drink, what we put in our body, watch the way we talk to ourselves, to each other in the family, and they know this is not correct. And so we are also building that change gradually. And mothers and women are the change makers in our community. You guys are the best things that can happen to us. If we bring you together in this vision to create a community where we normalize being 100, where we normalize old age, where we normalize people living long enough, and not every week we are attending the burials of people who are 45, 50, then it's for everybody.
Absolutely. I love
benefit.
that. So, hey, women, you have the permission to go and do your feasibility study and even get them to sign a consent that when he goes there, he's only going there for works so that you can support him to go. Okay. Now to the children, because again, this is the diaspora. Children like to engage with their parents, and it is highly recommended, right? To say fathers who work, say out of town or work a lot and still want to use that time to go out and meet you. And that child is like, but daddy, you promised to take me to that dance. You promised to take me here. What can we say to them?
We've had wonderful examples of men who come to join us in the walk with their kids going around in baby movers, right? And walking down with them. And it's amazing when we see this kind of commitment. There's a particular guy that comes to mind. He comes with the stroller, the son is in the stroller, the daughter is walking along with her. And when she gets tired, sometimes we help to carry her and all of that. So we also give that encouragement. If you are not here to walk with us in a group, then walk where you are. Send us a video, show us that you are walking, show us a video of you walking on the trail. If you are here, come and join us and walk. Now, it's not just about the walk. Let me be very clear. It's not just about the walk. The walk is a currency to bring men together. It's about the connection that we are building. It's about the friendships that we are creating. It's about the brotherhood that we are promoting. Because at some point, when you've left school, you find it very difficult as a man to make friends.
Absolutely.
We men find it very difficult to make friends. And so as we are getting older, the circle of our friendship begins to thin. Okay? Now, I will give you my own personal example. Most of the friends I have now are the husbands of my wife's friends. And the way it happens is my wife goes out as the social butterfly that she is, as the people magnet that she is. She makes friends with this person and she says, oh, I want to go to this person's house. Can you come? The husband will be in the house. And then I tag along, right? And I go there and we have this conversation as a couple. And the guy becomes my friend. That's what it is. And it's interesting because if you are not very intentional about this, one of the things that are going to hit us hard as men in the diaspora is loneliness when we are old. Because we don't have the classmates again, we don't have the cousins, we don't have the uncles, we don't have all those things we take for granted back home that will always be there. The age mates that we have, we don't have those things here. So now that you are capable, create your own place where you can make new friends, where you can have conversations with people, where somebody can say, hey, I've not seen you in 2 weeks. Let me check.
I love that. So you're not just healing from the transition that you had to experience coming into Canada. You're not just working on building the self that you are right now, but you're also working towards building a future that you'd genuinely enjoy and you'd have that support around you. I love that. I love everything about that. What are the criteria for joining? Any age limits? Any, like, do you have to be a Black man to join? Like, what are the criteria?
It's not a Black man thing.
Okay.
It's an immigrant community thing. So I usually tell people in my board and all of that, I say, immigrants come from all over the world. So you have Arabs who are immigrants, you have Europeans who are immigrants. So we're trying to build coalition, a rainbow, more like of men from different backgrounds, right? The immigration experience, as I have said, for Black men are challenging, more challenging than, I will argue, than the Caucasian community. But we're not creating a space that is where we are blocking off other people. The first criteria is that you're a man. The second criteria, obviously, is that you want to support and also get support from your brothers.
Beautiful.
That's
Beautiful. And so being a man means you have to be 18 and over?
I will try to get, and we'll try to make it like 18 and above. But again, kids work with us, right?
Right.
Work with us. So it's also that space where people come in and just have a good time, exercise themselves and all of that. So yeah, you could argue 18 years and above. If the 18-year kids in our lives want to still do anything with us, I have teenagers right now, and it's a little bit challenging hanging out with them. If they are willing to come out with you, oh, that's beautiful. Because what we want to do is let them see examples of what happens, that men can come together, that men can build something together, that men can support each other quietly without making noise about it. And there is a safe space you can go and say, I am struggling.
Wow.
Have an answer
a safe space that you can go and say, I am struggling. Does anybody have an answer for this? I love that. And one thing you said that I also genuinely love is that you don't limit it to just immigrants from Africa, because someone had said on this podcast that sometimes when we limit our community to just the people that we're familiar with, the people that look like us, we also limit our resources. We also limit those opportunities that may be out there for us. So I'm really glad that you have it open to more people. Now, to the government, you saw a need. You didn't wait for them to tell you to start. You got started. But I'm very sure that them holding hands with you would make your walk a little bit smoother. So what can they do to help sustain the work you're doing right now?
We've had a little bit of support from the city, even from conception. The city have been supporting us. The city of Edmonton supported us even from conception. And we've grown to the point where even the government of Alberta have recognized what we have done. They've also supported us. So it also tells you about what happens when we come together, because we are in a place where numbers are very critical. So the bigger the number, the more impact, and the only way you can show impact per se is the number of people who participate, right? The more we participate, the more we're able to attract resources that make things a lot easier for people. So for example, because of the support that we've gotten from the city and from the province, we're able to do t-shirts, we're able to do hoodies for people, and we gave them out free. We did a wellness event 1st of February, and it was free for men to attend, because they will begin to understand that in terms of the dollar bill that we spend on healthcare, it's better for you to spend more money on prevention than on curing, on healing. Now, if you are able to find community organizations that can help you move the narrative, help you get people proactive about their health, it's a lot easier for you than spending money on providing medications or even counseling and all of that. So that's the angle we are looking at it from the government support. That's what we're pitching to the government, to say, hey, men need support. And we've had this group that is supporting men. Can you help us to support more men? Well, here is also the challenge is, if government says, we've seen what you do, it has a lot of potentials, go take this and support what you're doing. And then the men for whom the resources have been attracted don't show up.
Yeah. Because then they're like, you said there was a problem. How come we don't see numbers? Now, that's a really good segue to my final question, which is to the naysayers that say, Mr. Chidi, you're just looking for ways to get money on our behalf and use us as numbers. You are going to be the primary beneficiary of all of this. What do we say to them?
I don't know if I am going to be the primary beneficiary except for the point that I am making myself healthier. Yes, I'm the primary beneficiary. I will show up there as long as I am blessed to live. I will show up there. But in terms of whether anybody can benefit or not, listen, I tell my team that I don't want to build an empire. Right? I don't want to build an empire. One of the things I do when we come, I encourage members to do is, we are bringing people into this group. You have opportunities to network. On average, we have about 30 men working with us on a weekend. Okay, so you have an average to network with 29 men. You may not see outside of this group. I'm not stopping you from having conversation. I'm not stopping you from walking up to somebody and say, hey, introducing yourself and say, hey, my name is Chidi. This is what I do. I would really like to have coffee with you. I'm not stopping anybody from doing that. At the end of the day, and then talking about money, when you have money from government, you are I'm very careful about it because you account for every cent that the government has given to you. And we put also in place structures to ensure that even if I'm not there today, some other person can look at our books in a dispassionate manner and see that I don't take anything from there for my own personal use. I have a board I report to. So this is not about me. We have a board that we meet every quarter to say this is what we are doing, this is what we have done, these are the plans. So that level of governance is there. The executive team, the team that puts this thing, there's an accountant who, when she came on board, one of the things I told her is, you have the right to query me on any spending. We are building to last, and you can't build to last if you make yourself everything about the organization. One of the beautiful moments I've had was when I went out. I had to go for a business trip, and the men still worked. Everything still worked well. People came out and did their work and did everything well. And that's what it is. So it's not about me, brother. It's about us. It's about us coming together to build a network, to build a space, to build that connection that will benefit even those who don't know. Because while we're doing all of these things, people are still coming in every day. They will find benefit in it.
Thank you so much. And to add to that, I was at an event yesterday and heard one of the speakers say, some people go into a room and see light. Other people go into that same room and see darkness. What you choose to see depends on where your mindset is at, and that would influence what you're able to get out of that room. So go in with an open mind and a spirit to receive, and you'd receive. Go in critical and looking for problems, you definitely would see problems. But it only affects you as the individual because the organization goes on. So it's not just about Mr. Chidi, it's about all of you. And don't hesitate to come out and take that walk, because health is wealth. So even though you're busy making that money, you are not wealthy if you don't have good health. I have really enjoyed spending time with you today, Mr. Chidi. Any last words to viewers?
I'll keep mentioning whether the snow is falling or whether the sun is up. And I need to put this in perspective. We don't walk outside when it is snowing. We use the West Edmonton Mall. So we go to the West Edmonton Mall when the snow, during the cold season, and we walk around the mall for the 2 hours, 4 times within the 2 hours that we walk. So that gives us the ability to walk around the year because the West Edmonton Mall is free, it's open, and it's very accommodating. But now, during this time, this wonderful summertime, that's when we explore Edmonton. Listen, Edmonton is a beautiful city. There are so many parts of Edmonton I would have seen or experienced if I was just driving. So we walked the various trails of Edmonton. Last week, we got into a trail where somebody was saying, this looked exactly like my village. The pathways in my village. So it's exciting exploring and finding out about new things about this place we call home. Because we are not on holiday, this is home. And the only way we can show that this is home is by being familiar, not just with the past, but also with the present, not just with the present, but positioning for the future. So come and join us. Let's explore Edmonton together. Let's do things together as brothers. Let's do together as men and as friends. Join us on our Father's Day celebration. Get your ticket.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. I hope you have heard this message from our dear guest today. Come out and work on your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual health, your social health, and your mental health just by going out and choosing to walk. The white man will call it hiking. Until our next episode, thank you so much for being with us throughout this conversation. I am your host, Becca, and Sabe Sandindin.